Water obtained. Traditions being observed. Are there any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off?
A disclaimer that if I sound a little weird tonight, I am recovering from a cold. So I apologize for sounding strange.
Oh, a little strange is a good thing. You all didn't complain about me echoing off the walls at the hotel or sounding as if I had two plungers stuck up my nose, so we will not pay any mind whatsoever, I promise you. Nothing will be held against you. Unless, of course, you bribe Hestia.
But does he really have to bribe Hestia?
Sorry, I got distracted. Wait, what? The thing I wanted to cover. I know we still were saying that it was supposed to happen in scene, but since we've kind of slowly slid past that point, and I already spent the XP, I wanted to tie up the loose ends that are the two new staff members to the shelter.
There's new staff members. Okay, sounds like a plan. So, consider that a fait accompli and well on the way of being worked into the backstop and background that's happening around the coterie as we speak. The question that will help the overall is, Lolly, would you be so kind as to roll your resolve plus aspects? Your DC is 3. And the reason for that is we're going to forward through a little bit of time. We're going to move forward from that Tuesday to that Friday. And I'm going to have you all give a very brief, non-roll heavy description as to what you've all managed over the next 4 or so nights, roughly, since leaving the Chantry. Because while time is a thief of always, things move a little slower, especially when there's the opportunity for tension and drama and comeuppance. So while true to his word, DuSable would push and be the final tiebreaker as to whether you all would be accepted back into the tower without too many punitive actions held against you. There's the matter of your failed tenure as hounds, and failed only because you all left the tower, not because as hounds you all were unsuccessful. In fact, you were far more successful in your short tenure than was expected. The idea of the punishment initially was that your coterie would either implode and destroy themselves by transgressing against the traditions, or the assignments and efforts of doing the job would burn you all out. It's one of the many factors towards Damien's success as an avowed anarch. He was a thorn in Loden's side because his sire was a kindred that Loden didn't want to take on directly and had been ensconced in the city and had support and so many other factors working for them that it was not worth the effort to destroy Damien before Loden's passing. After Loden's passing, with Kevin Jackson taking the praxis, he did what other princes and powers that be could not. He managed to wrap his arms around the Anarchs and make unofficial alliances, including bringing Damien, one of the surviving bigwigs, notable Anarchs, into the fold. He managed to quell the Anarch Rebellion most noteworthy personage. Instead of Baby Chorus being a sign of counterculture, anarchism, and a rallying cry for all of the disaffected youth of the city, it became part of the status quo. It became part of an example of the Camarilla's power. And that was a coup of phenomenal effect. It took everyone's favorite rebels and made them the government. It also added to their reach. They're able to safely tour nearly anywhere in the Midwestern time zone. Within a night's drive, within 5-hour drive of Chicago, they are able to safely and be assured of their safe travel. They have financial backing. They have so many other facets which helps them extend their reach further than it ever has been. Even with the effort spent to make sure that they seem to be inheritors of the Baby Chorus title instead of actually Baby Chorus. But the role that Lolly just made is, over the course of the next few nights, beset though she is, would she alight at her own haven, or would she take up the hospitality given to her and remain on premises? Because she knows this is the epicenter of a Category 9 tornado of chaos, and fate's hand changes and rechanges and realigns itself so that there is a great catastrophe that needs to be averted.
She would probably, over the course of a couple of days, do a little of both. She doesn't want to leave her retainer alone too long.
Right.
So she'd stay like a night, and then she'd go home the next night. And provided she had, somewhere to go instead of sleeping in the middle of the floor.
Okay. So the vision doesn't change much. It grows. It's one of those images that keeps bombarding her, that starts small. You start with something about the size of a 2x3 high school, grade school picture. It's clear, it's defined. You get to see all the colors and how the light affects it. And then each night it expands from there till on Friday, the dream that bombards her is a full wall size mural. All of the details of all of those 2x3s are still there, but now seeing how the spider's web rips and tears through and connects to so many different points. There are the 3 crowns of various materials: ebony, gold, silver. There's a wooden one that makes in there. There's shadow wolves and other predators closing in on it. There's a train speeding out of Chicago with a child soldier on board, his head disconnected from his body, his blood leaving a trail behind him, staining the ground around it. There's an mushroom cloud just south of all of this maelstrom of activity. There's the Jiangshi, or hopping vampires of Asian mythology, spiked and impaled by ghostly warriors. There's knights of old charging the battlefield against SWAT, modern day SWAT armored individuals. There are hordes of barely clothed, shambling, you're not sure what exactly. There's pustules and eyes and limbs that are not quite right. And it forms the idea that everything is moving towards a center point, a place that exists as a mound where bodies are buried, or where crucifixes were raised, or that was used as a final battlefront against others. And it's a central point, but around this mound are all sorts of gears and levers and strange machinery made of bone, shadow, and flesh. and sussing it out, because there is in fact far too much detail. There is in fact far too many small threads connecting a whole host of other facets that for lesser minds it would be overwhelming. For lesser minds, it would be too much happening at once, because this picture, this image, this vision that only slightly moves is for all intents and purposes carved in stone, set to happen no matter what choices are made. At least that's what it presents itself as. The funny thing about that, as a Malkavian, someone who has the opportunity of seeing the myriad potential futures all bombarding against themselves and cascading onto infinity, you know that nothing is immutable. Everything can be changed. Everything is affected by everything else. And so finding the right butterfly to pluck its wings or graft more to it is the linchpin of it all. There's something small that could undo all of these plans, machinations, and ideals that are moving toward the central vortex, that central mound, that central shelter, that safe haven and sanctuary. Something small will change most of those things. And if most of those things change, it will change the whole of it. Just finding what that butterfly is the question. And without too much further ado and further delay, I'd like to thank you all. Quite simply and quite honestly, with the entirety of my being, thank you all for these many opportunities to indulge and share in this hobby and to get to know these characters as well as yourselves. Your efforts and energies and time is greatly appreciated by me. So thank you, and thank you. And without too much further ado, too much further delay, if you all don't have any further questions, if there are no other ideas we would like to raise, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins, Season 18, Episode 6. Your past can become gateways. When we last left our coterie, 4 nights prior, the world had shifted. They were no longer outcast or taken in as mercy cases by the family of the Midwest, the Hekata. They were no longer shadowed by their Hekata overlord. They were no longer held as part of the red list, the local red list. They were no longer to be blood hunted. They were no longer officially hounds, though that decision, one way or the other, has yet to fall. That other shoe is still hanging in the air. What is known by them and what is being spread is that they are no longer privy to a blood hunt. They are no longer inviolably separated from the traditions. They are bound by them all and welcomed once more into the fold. What all that means, the details are still yet unresolved. One of the many ideas that have been put forth, and probably the most likely, is that in his sponsorship of the coterie to return, in his breaking the tie for them, on behalf of them, part of the cover story to explain his interest and what he was getting out of it would be for them to be the unofficial whips and hounds for the Tremere of Chicago. They would unofficially be considered part of the local pyramid. They would unofficially be considered part of the chantry and acting in accordance with the will of the Regent of Regents, the Primogen of the Tremere of Chicago. It's no small feat, and it is effectively a bump in status without a bump in servitude. They are not trading up for more masters above them. They don't have the entirety of the government hanging over their head. They'd have but one person to vouch for them, one person to whom they'd owe their services, and they would have the benefit of being accepted back into the Camarilla. So unless there was work being done to countermand that or counteract that is most likely the angle to which DuSable was pushing his support and his argumentation with the other members of the government. But you know what they say, no news is good news. And he had not bombarded them with the results. He had not come sniffing around, and he had not beset them with needs or demands as of yet. So, 4 days since the night falls, as it always does in Chicago. Quickly, unannounced, and with very little fanfare. It's Chicago. It is winter in Chicago. The wind's blowing off the lake. Everyone's bundled and buttoned against the wind, who still manages to rifle through their clothes as if he is checking them for a threat to the national security. The hawk is everywhere. It sees all, it craps on all. Even at the warmest point of the day, the wind off the lake tears through the city, knocking on windows, rattling doors, rousting those who seek warmth in places that they shouldn't because they have nowhere else to seek them. It comes tearing through the town, letting everyone know that it is the true Lord and Master of the world. And while the living catch the dickens from it, the dead, who are able to withstand more pain than any living individual, catch the worst of it. Because cold causes the vitae, already nearly frozen within them, to stand still, to spread the cold. There's no circulation. So the cold is far more biting for the dead. The cold reminds them each and every kiss of its caress that they are not, in fact, alive. A help for it is, of course, rousing the blood and pretending to be human. It helps some, yet, like hope, hurts all the more when it's proven false. So a quick rouse, and then we'll go in anti-alphabetical as to what we have been up to for the last 4 or so days. There's something about Miriam's push for humanism. There's something about Miriam's understanding about the weight of being dead that allows her beast, even in these harsh environments of the outside world, to remain mostly somnambulant. It is there and it is present, and it occasionally, out of some semblance of responsibility towards its appointed task, will mention itself to her. But it does not, in fact, lay her low. It does not, in fact, cross that last boundary which would shred her of all control and have her, well, being the monster that she has repressed from the very beginning. So 4 nights since the advent of Lolly. 4 nights since sitting in the hub of power that is the Tremere Chantry. 4 nights since her failure to hunt. 4 nights with hunger. What is it that Miriam has managed to do?
Well, once again, first priority is probably going to go get some grub. But she is going to, if at all possible, attempt to use the bit of her she has access to through the Painted Lady's connections, which will also serve another purpose.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, go on.
Fulfilling on the contract.
Okay. That being the case, go ahead and make her hunt roll. We're going to add 3 dice for the knights, and then we're going to add 2 die for her contacts within the Bahari.
Is being finicky. All right, so that was a total of 5 extra dice.
Yes. Fate, as always, is relatively fickle. And it chooses who will be the hero of the moment and the villain. And despite...
Why not? That didn't change anything. It's fine.
And despite fate's intervention, their intentions of laying the monstrousness of Miriam bare for the world to see. Some angel on her shoulder guides her left when the easiest prey would have been to the right. Some angel on her shoulder has her stop and tie her shoe as the blow meant for her goes sailing past. By the skin of her teeth, she manages to not, over the course of evenings until now, lose her composure. She manages to beguile and work her way back into the graces of this all but hidden cult. She finds and susses out those who would be the worshipful. She manages to attend one quiet service in some out-of-the-way garden apartment in the Lakeview area, and doesn't end the entirety of the gathered. She manages to work her way into the middle ranges of the worshipful Baham, the living, breathing, sweating, heaving masses without divesting them of everything. She, in fact, manages to gain several rumors that there is a promised land being prepared. There are plans for some who have the ability to go simply and purchase condos, apartments, and buildings to do so in the south suburbs. Word is being spread that the grandmother is returned, though also the rumors persist that she had never truly left, had merely gone into hiding. All things being equal, Miriam has a fully satiated beast without the divestment of others' lives. Miriam has information that there is the burgeoning preparation of a grand Lilin temple in the south suburbs. Miriam has information that while the Painted Lady is in fact outside of the continental United States, this word has reached even her ears and she may be on the return shortly. So information in hand, stomach filled, beast mostly satiated. What is it, if anything, what Miriam have been up to after conducting her missions and heading out and making connections and accomplishing quite a lot in a very short amount of time?
Well, I've presume she would swing by her shop and make sure that all of the repairs from Lucio's little adventure have been repaired.
Yes. Like a scar, that wall still sits mostly bare. It's perfectly repaired. To the untrained eye, to many of the trained eyes, it would just simply be a wall where there wasn't any art, that no art had ever been hung on. Yet, to Miriam, it is a gleaming bright red scar of an unhealed wound. It is tender to look at, knowing what had been there, knowing the hours it took to prepare the works of art that are no longer there.
Well, that would have to be rectified. So the rest of that first night, she would probably set about outlining and sketching and, making all the little adjustments necessary to start filling the wall. I don't know, she might do, instead of the zombie princesses this time, perhaps a series of animals with something slightly off about them. They look mostly normal, but just something off, like a third eye, or, feathers where there should be fur.
I see. So plugging away, working quietly and quickly, and amassing works of art. Miriam spends her time biding it while seeking to repair what had come before. Sliding right along, Lucio, the hand of the beast isn't something that is new. The hand of the beast isn't something that is unusual. Its relative quietude is. Its relative peacefulness is. And that says a lot, because it is in fact speaking, it is in fact whispering, it is in fact cajoling and pushing you forward to feed. But it's doing so in such a quiet, calm, almost rational manner as to make you nervous. The beast is anything save calm. The beast is anything save rational. Yet it's making good points. You should always feed when you have the opportunity. And if you don't, then, well, there are many lives on the other side of the shroud that attest to what happens when you lose your temper. There's a lot of things in the offing. There's Arsenio out there in the night working for your friend Al. Most likely due to lack of choice, but he is still out there in the night. Your cousin. There are still your sisters unaccounted for, though word is being spread that they are okay. And you're a little wary of that because there's not much details given. Simply that they are okay, they are safe. Things are working towards their end. Things will work out. Just patience. Not able to question them because there's always something important that they need to do. They're always on the route towards something else. When dropping by should let you know. And it's only compounded because the beast is being calm. The beast is being rational. It's presenting a logical argument for why you should go reach out to Sephora. You should go to the theater directly and sample whatever newest wares they have. Because when's the next time you might be able to?
Beast has a point.
It does, doesn't it? And that's the scary part. Are you becoming more like your beast? Or is your beast becoming more like you? In the grand scheme of things, does it matter if both your goals and aims are beginning to align?
So, there's definitely a lot on Lucio's mind, even though things have started to calm down. As you said, there's sisters, there's Arsenio, there's the issue with the blood trade. I'm pretty sure Dusable assigned them a task, if I recall, and then there's still the fact that he doesn't know how the hell he's still alive after walking out in the sun. That's something that has been on his mind for a while. During these next few days, he knows he's not going to be able to accomplish everything on his to-do list. But what he will attempt to do is, rather than trying to directly go and find his sisters, because that didn't quite work out the last time, and it might take away from his other duties, he is going to try to send a message over to the Pisketeers, as I believe that's where Vivi said they were being held. Basically a message inquiring as to how they are and requesting a meeting.
That catches you. That would have caught your sire by some small bit of surprise, but she would acquiesce, saying that there are things afoot and partnerships at risk presently, but she'll make sure that they get the message as quickly as she is able, and will get you a response as quickly as she is able. There's something about her willingness to acquiesce. There's something about it. It sticks there in the back of the head and it won't let go, but it won't move forward. It is a mental bit of constipation where it's sitting there applying pressure, but won't shit or get off the pot.
And just a quick clarifying question. Is Lucio with his sire at the moment, or is he just reaching out to them?
Over the 3 days, it would be a little bit of both. She'd swing by on the way to take care of something else and let you know, and you'd trade off information, and you'd reach out through dead drops that you've been given and phone numbers that you've been given that should work because they're landlines and that sort of situation. It's funny.
Gotcha.
It takes this long of reconnecting with your sire and that network, that honestly extended portion of your family, because you all share blood, though not the sort of blood that carries with it DNA, the sort of blood that carries with it the spiritual, magical, supernatural aspect of it. And having reconnected, having non-negative communications with them, it raises quite a few bits of issue, because their touch of oblivion, which you feel in yourself, is similar but completely different than what your blood, your human blood, your human connections carry. It is, with a little bit of research, you could find out that the Castigliones, the Torys, and by extension the Darcys, all spring from a Venetian merchant that went by the name of Giovanni hundreds of years ago. And that there was a darkness to them even before their death. And you all carry that with you. It's there in the blood, like little biological machines carrying with it encoded information from that darkness at the heart of you all. And not so dissimilar from your supernatural clan, your supernatural blood, your extended family of sorts. Almost as if it was fated for you to be as you are.
And speaking of which, reconnecting with the Lasombra was actually on his list of things to do, so he would definitely like to catch up with them as much as possible. Two other things on his to-do list during these couple days is try and inquire about Arsenio and having him return to his service. And number 4, I guess, on this list, get started on establishing some control of the blood trade, because as we had discussed previously, there is a power vacuum and it is time to capitalize on that.
It very much is. Would you be so kind as to go ahead excuse me, and roll your wits plus streetwise or resolve plus investigation. Investigation would be a little slower because you're moving more abstract, where streetwise is literally investing yourself in the ebb and flow of the neighborhood in and around the shelter and its connections to others farther west, east, south.
Okay, I'll do... Do I want the bigger pool, or do I want to save time? I'll do the, you said streetwise would be faster?
Yes.
Alright, I'll do what's in streetwise.
Alright, your DC is 3. There's a law to the jungle that everyone is loosely aware of. Not everybody remembers the poem given to Mowgli, but it's still there. The idea of it, there's a hierarchy to the jungle, which is the urban environment around which the shelter inhabits. It can be simplified with big fucks little, big fucks small. The bigger fish eats the smaller fish and eventually is eaten by the smaller fish when it dies. Same thing can be had in the understanding of the ebb and flow of the criminal organizations that loosely abut each other. They often go to war, and most times it's a beating that's handed out, or occasionally a breaking that's handed out. You brace people because, well, dead men don't pay. Dead men you can't make any money off of. Dead men don't add to your legend. They spread your word for you. Sometimes it's just the fact that they walk in with, a black eye or tweaked arm or broken finger adds to the legend that keeps others from trying. Sometimes there needs to be funerals and pictures on t-shirts, but most times it's a beating, it's a shaming, it is a cowing. It's the brandishing of the firearm and not the using of it that keeps the ecosystem in balance. Lucio had already approached that world from the opposite end. He's approached it as an outsider. He's approached it as someone who is peeking their nose in. He's never really been part of that ecosystem. He's never really been privy to the rules of the jungle. He's had to understand them without having to be beholden to them. But understanding them makes it easy for him to find Bill, who's managed to unite 4 lesser criminal enterprises under his banner. Human though they are, emboldened and strengthened by his blood though they are still human. They are still able to get arrested, to be roused by the police, to have the gossip mills churning at full light speed to spread the word. And that word is not anything good for Lucio. Because within a stone's throw from Itzhak, within a stone's throw from he himself, Bill has carved out a small empire, dealing in both drugs and blood, and occasionally lead. Bill has utilized the time that Lucio has been busy elsewise to accomplish his goals of making money hand over fist. And therein lies the problem, because while Bill's henchmen and women are human and mortal, Bill's ties are to the Capone gang, those kindred gangsters who believe in championing Capone's name. They seeking to be the living embodiment of the mythology of Al Capone during Prohibition. They have their fingers in nearly every illicit trade that can be bootlegged, that can be transported, that can be sold. And Bill, as their representative, as their associate, as a ranking member of the Capone gang, has carved out a territory within a stone's throw, interrupting the ebb and flow of the 2 major dealers in the area, being Lucio and Itzhak.
So, with that in mind, I'm beginning to realize that Lucio is not as good at this as Sophia was. So, he's gonna see if he can try and meet with the Blood Tsar again directly to get their support in establishing some control over the area and on the assets that the Castiglione and Tories left behind. He figures it'd be easier to maneuver around Bill than it would be to strong-arm him into giving up any of his territory.
Fair. That being the case, go ahead and roll your charisma and your contacts, DC2 to get a meeting, DC3 to have them move on your behalf.
Charisma and contacts, you said?
Yes.
Maybe this is a good time to just clarify. I have contacts as 5, but I have it listed as a combination of Novak and the circulatory system.
Yes.
Is contacts supposed to be like each one tracked separately, or is it fine to have it as that?
No, it's fine to roll the totality of it, using both legal and illegal resources to make contacts and build your network of potential influence through favors and the like. It's fine.
And how quickly I forgot.
Yes. It likes to be pinged.
Oh, no. Willpowering this.
It is amazing what a little elbow grease and boyish charm can do. The wheels are in motion. Conversations have been had. Contacts have gone into full effect. And there is soon, as the word spread to Lucio, a sit down to be had with all of the dealers in the immediate area, which of course includes Bill. And speaking of including Bill, a random sort of outsider who's making a name for themselves and carving out a space for themselves. Lolly. 4 days, the picture grown wide and bright and as detailed as a 4K monitor. The beast manages to do what the beast does. Wheedle, needle, cajole, and otherwise importune itself into her night. What does Lolly do from Tuesday until Friday? We know that she'll spend a few nights here and then spend a few nights there overall. But what does that entail? Being beset with such a clear, detailed maelstrom of images of the potential futures and presences of the coterie, knowing what it will bring to the city at large.
She'll spend some time painting it, the various images she saw, to try to make sense of them in an order. Other than that, she just goes about her normal routine when she's home, which doesn't entail much of anything. A lot of interneting, talking to her retainer about various conspiracy theories, since he's crazy.
No, genius always sounds crazy to those unable to really grasp what's going on. Don't you see it all connected? The Fibonacci sequence that is at the core of every living thing gives you the roadmap that you need to follow. It tells you how this world spirals out and how each thing that seeks to control it is in turn controlled by it. So if you start with Hamilton, who's had his second resurrection thanks to the popularizing of pedagogues and demagogues and would-be conquerors and royalists, and watch how it spirals out and around. This is the second coming of Hamilton, and people are just now surviving his shadow and reaching back out to the country that founded us, who in turn were actually not the country that founded us, because we know that the royal family is in fact German plant into the British royal family, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire 2 steps removed, because they created their own empire within the idea of the Holy Roman Empire, which is, we all know, is nothing more than the Catholic Church, who begat the Episcopals and the Pentecostals, who are spreading the same message from those fall German British royals who were really part of the same conspiracy that founded this country as a colony to spread its influence to the other part of the world. Because you know, if you follow the track of the lineages of all the families that have actually ever banked, and he goes on and on. Several conversations later, as she's absently present, giving information, sharing in the conversation, and doodling and painting and trying to perfect the images that are in her head and bring them into reality, even though the images in her head are nothing more than a mirror to the reality that's already happened, even though she has the opportunity to stop it, to keep it from being as large as it is, to keep it from being the devastation that it is fated to be. Finding the right butterfly is the trick. finding the right pair of wings to either graft or remove is the key. It's the linchpin. All of it depends on something so small as to be held in the center of one's hand. All of it depends on finding the right apple cart to upset.
And that's the trick, isn't it? To upset the right cart and not the wrong cart.
Because of her successes with the premonitions that are besetting her, her ability to withstand the near full might of future, she's able to see a path through it easily. Has to do with the train heading south away from the vortex at the center of the canvas. It has to do with the shadows and the beast therein not managing to seize control of the crown, whatever that means. It has to do with the hole being vented and not plugged. It has to very much do with targeting something and pulling it out of that mass and that swirl of energy. But the what of it is the question. Many hands make the work light, but having an idea as to where those hands should go is what causes the confusion, the pausing. And while the image is nearly complete, the initial rough sketch of it at least, though smaller, what path of action or inaction does Lolly choose?
She will need to get some more information from the coterie about what they perceive is going on in the South. That would be where she's at. Once she arrives on the decision of the thing in the South is the problem that needs to be addressed first, then she will have Floyd destroy all her paintings.
In his usual way, with dousing it with acid and lighting the flame on the roof of the apartment building so that it joins the spiritual world and leave this one behind.
Yeah, burning them, whatever. Anytime she actually used a wall, she'll paint over it or have him paint over it just white again. Sometimes a canvas isn't the best canvas. Locations have symbolism too.
I lost that last bit. I'm sorry.
I said locations have symbolism too, like where she paints, what she paints on.
Yes, it does. So with her path set forward, how is she going to collect them all? Is she going to trust the happenstance of fate to align everyone in the same place at the same time, or is she going to go looking for them?
She would go to the shelter first. They seem to hang out there, or so she's been told anyway. And see who's about. And if they're not all there, she assumes that whoever is there knows how to get a hold of the others. So.
All right, excellent. So it is a little early, but I do have a few things that are happening in my background. I need to go take care of that. Let's take a quick pause here. It is 37 after the hour. We'll be back at 47 after. Hey folks, sorry about the delay. Everybody back?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Well, there's a lot of the past coming due. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of plans that were initialized over the last few days. And as the chickens come home to roost, and we sense or see a convergence towards the shelter's haven as Lolly makes her way there. We turn our eyes and our gaze to Hestia. Now, one of the many quiet things about Hestia, the things that exist just below the surface, is her beast. It has quietly worked at her, utilizing its conscience, her conscience and senses of guilt, her connection to others, and her want to care for the many souls present. At the Haven. Using her sense of care, consideration, and pride against her on most cases, is able to quietly creep in from the shadows of her mind and cause certain responses in her. Today is not one of those days where it's quiet. Tonight is not one of those nights where it sneaks up on her. When her eyes snap open, resurrected for the evening, her beast is screaming in her ears, causing her eyes to twitch and the veins unfilled with vitae to pulse, seemingly of their own. Her guzzler, her hat with 2 pouches set aside for blood, sitting there unused and empty. The coolness of the day all but gone, replaced by the warmth of the timed heated system hidden amidst all the wreck and ruin of the shelter's coterie. Her beast kicking the mental door to its cage loud enough to almost cause her heart to beat of its own volition. At Hunger 4, Hestia has been more ravenous, but just barely so. At Hunger 4, the call of all the blood, just a few floors beneath where she is almost impossible to not heed. At Hunger 4, the only quiet thing about Hestia's beast is the fact that only she can hear it. From Tuesday to Friday, with that bearing down on her, what does Hestia accomplish?
I don't quite remember what DuSalvo said we were supposed to be accomplishing, so I'll come back to that. Something definitely she'd want to do, though, is get the flyers out into Sebastian's hand that her and Miriam worked on before the support group, quote unquote, that they were starting. She's going to make sure that the whole hiring thing happens, because she knows that everybody else is about at their snapping point. As kind of a side project to tie into that, she wants to send somebody to check out that other shelter and see what it's about, see how far they've progressed, that kind of thing, so they know how big of a problem it is for them. And have them come and report back, and she needs to get something to eat because she can't go any longer at 4 hunger. It's not smart.
Okay.
For her to be this hungry.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. At Hunger Force, she's going to reach out to Sebastian, the human, almost child of the administration staff. Would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your resolve plus composure difficulty of 3 to not feed on him. She has power over him. She controls his livelihood. She controls what he's most passionate about, which is the shelter itself. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it that he is the almost perfect example of a victim for her and her beast, along with a fresh-bodied youth who would do and has done everything in their ability and power to protect and support the shelter.
Actually, the funny thing about it is I had been thinking the whole time that we were talking and going through this that Sebastian would make a good meal. Because technically he's not homeless. She pays him. If he gives permission, I mean, what harm could it do? She could make him forget.
First things first, go ahead and roll your resolve plus composure. And so as you're conversing with him, getting him to utilize all of those modern computer literate skills to design and publish the flyer for printing to attract attention towards the shelter of a specific variety, those connected to, associated with, or connected to the Bahari, to the Baham, to the Lilans that Urzuli has on multiple occasions had the shelter partake of. It is in fact a success. Now the question becomes, as there are still 3 lesser but still important factors that she was attempting to do prior to feeding, does she change or modify the things that she would like to accomplish, knowing that each act will increase the difficulty before feeding?
No, I think what she has him kind of by herself in the office and they're talking as she's trying to explain to him what she wants, and every time she gets a little too close to him, it's chipping away at that brain, the voice in her head that says we shouldn't do this, and it's making it, why not? He's an adult. He can give consent. I don't see the harm.
Full flesh and bloom of youth is all over his features. He's often mistaken for a high schooler. He's often mistaken for 3, 5, occasionally 10 years younger than his actual 20 years of life. He's tall, which fools many into thinking, or at least assuming, that he might be older than he is until you look into his face, until you look into the litheness of his limbs. How does Hestia seek to get consent from someone who depends on her for their livelihood?
I hate that she's gonna do this, but it's what she would do. She kind of looks at him and smiles for a second. You know, you're turning into such a handsome young man. You have a girlfriend? I don't see why you wouldn't have a girlfriend. Sorry, I'm just getting close to the holidays. And anyway, and then she'll like circle back to what they're working on, and then come back to, no, actually, if you want to help me with something, I think it would be mutually beneficial for us. I know you work really hard, and I appreciate everything you do. So I want to show you something, but I think before I can do that, I need you to tell me that I can, because I don't want to like freak you out or something, you know. But it's entirely up to you, no pressure, I promise. She just kind of smiles at him, and she knows she's attractive, obviously, so it's pushing a little bit of that Mrs. Robinson flirty will I, won't I thing on him.
The tension is thick enough that you would need a battle axe to cut through. Sabatian has found a purpose in sacrifice and service to those who are completely underserved. It doesn't stop him from being male, doesn't stop him from being young, doesn't stop him from needing or wanting to explore what his sexuality means. The pleasure that is easily and readily viewable through the computer, through the phone, hell, through just conversations with the wrong individual. Because of his level of sacrifice and because of him working so many hours, it's not something he really gets the opportunity to explore. Opening the door to him, exploring those pleasures outside of himself, those pleasures outside of the occasional former hookups that were possible, outside of the at times violent flirtations of those who live in the shelters. Heshia's soft shoe and backdoor grooming is, as they say in Pokemon, super effective. It doesn't take long to get a stammering yes. It doesn't take long to get the biological impulses flashing across his skin, the flushed cheeks, the oncoming of a light dewy sweat, the bright-eyed excitement at where this seems to be heading. Gets a yes and a yes and a yes. Primed and ready due his age and experience and all of the many media that he's absorbed over the years, preparing him for this moment when someone far more experienced finds him worth the effort. Getting the yes, getting a yes, is easy. Understand.
And unlike normal, with being stupid, she is going to lock the door on both sides,
ensuring that she's alone with her prey. Because that's what he is. In this moment, he is not Sabatian, the child who has given his entire life to service. In this moment, he is not Sabatian, her employee. It's only as she's sinking fangs as the reality of what her actions have led her to materializes. Under every understanding, there's no way that he could say no. There was no way that he could, so outnumbered, outgunned, and outmanipulated, could the no have ever been given. But so too, neither could the yes. She pays him. She is 5+ times his age. And while he is having the absolute best moment of his life with the stains to prove it, the only thing that she wants is his life. The only thing that her beast wants is his life. It'll settle for his blood, but the truth of the matter is, he is a meal to her. His saying yes is nothing. His saying no, not an option. The fight was over before it began. He's been prepped for this through her efforts of leading the shelter, through her paying him to work at the shelter, through her relying on his service as an employee. There's no way that he could factually, honestly consent to what's happening to him. Would you be so kind as to, once your fangs hit and break the surface, to roll 1/3 of your humanity and your unspent willpower, the taste of all of that hot, heady blood, full with the youth of his life, coating her tongue, rattling her senses, curling her mental toes with the pleasure of it, is a siren song to the oblivion. It is a step over the precipice.
Am I rolling hunger with that, or just the pool?
Just the pool.
Well, since it's a willpower-based roll, I can't roll again, so that it is what it is. It is added to.
It unfortunately is. There was a summer where your dad and your mom finally got all the time off. You were out of school and you wanted nothing more than to spend time with your father. He worked. He worked nonstop. He worked even when he was spit on by those kids when he dropped you off at school. Nobody likes a cop, especially in your neighborhood. But you all got away. You went up to the Dells and you spent the entirety of a week in the hotel and at the Dells, and you know your father laughed. You could hear his laugh even in your sleep, and you would get up and go meet him and your mom in the kitchen as he came home from one late shift or another. But seeing him at peace, he wasn't watching the doors, he wasn't watching the crowd. His attention was solely on you and your mom and getting away from the city. Even though it was cooler in Wisconsin than it was in Chicago, it was the best moments of your life. And it was that vacation more than anything else that solidified your love and want to be like your father. Your need to help the world around you to be a better place so that more people could have weeks like that. You knew your father was always tired. Being a cop was difficult. And while he never talked specifically about his job, he did instill into you the idea of civil service. Because all it takes for evil to prosper is the silence of good men. And while your teacher used that quote to say something, you took it to mean the silence of action, the silence of unwillingly allowing evil to prosper because you're so caught up in your own life. What does it take? What does it matter? A little pain is nothing in comparison to the lot of pain that others are caught up in. Their drug addictions, their mental issues, their social issues, the fact that society tosses them aside. They deserve all that you can give and more. And while it's difficult working as many hours as you do and still managing to work your way through your PhD, it's worth it. You know that the shelter owners, you know that Donnell, you know that Miss Green, you know that Amalia give that much and more. They put the entirety of their lives on hold. Hell, look at the Darcy girls, which is how you remember the redhead and the brunette with the pale skin, the pretty nose and lips that always seem to be holding a secret. They're working their way through their bachelor's and associates, and they're there as much as they could be, at least until recently. I wonder where they are. But that week with your dad, that stands out, that shining moment. There's no better moment in your life. Save this one. This one where everything is quieting down and you can hear a drum slowly playing in the background. You can feel how much Miss Green loves you. She actually loves you. She actually sees you, unlike hundreds of others who you're just that body at the door. She actually noticed you. You're not sure why it's suddenly darker. Why are you so warm? And then it dawns on you as the room grows lighter, as your body grows lighter, and you can see into your grandparents' living room, which you know isn't a possibility. Your dad had to sell their apartment, their condo, years ago. You were 12 when your grandma finally went into that great beyond. You've never been very religious. You just absorbed it. She's the only person that you've known personally outside of the shelter that has ever passed on. You're not sure why you're thinking about her now, or why you were thinking about her now, but now you realize why. Because she's there smiling. That little stale box of Lorna Doones in her hand, shaking it to lure you further into the great beyond. You know that it's over. You hope that you've made a difference. You hope your father doesn't lose his shit when he realizes you, your grandma, his father, who he talked about often enough, the last few people he actually loved, the last few people he actually cared about. Even though you know he is currently working undercover, he still swings by and waves at you from the door, never quite coming in. You never figured that out. He'll meet you at your mom's place every odd night that you take the early portion of the evening off, but he'll never walk into your job. Even though a year or so ago he was always there, he was always swinging through, he was always checking on you, making sure that you ate enough, he slept enough. But this new job, whatever it is, keeps him even busier. He still makes it a point to stop by and make sure you're okay. At least he did. And as the lights go out for Sebastian, his last thoughts were of others. His last thoughts were of taking care and ensuring others were okay. He didn't fear as death came for him, silently like a thief in the night. He wanted others to be okay. And that's what Hestia's left with, as the corpse of the youth sits in her arms. Her hunger non-existent, the beast stuffed, filled with the life's blood and life essence of the whelp in her arms.
Okay. Would this cause a panic, 1 and 2? Would she know if he's too far gone to bring him back with blood?
Panic? Yes. Surety of... Is he too far gone? No, there's no way to know for sure.
Because she's got a pretty high medicine. She's got a 4. I'm noticing.
It's not about the physicality of death. It's about the magic of her blood. It's about how soon it's administered. She's heard of cases. She's read of times where the person has been all but buried, and the Vitae worked his magic on them. She's heard of other times where the Vitae was being poured into them as their life's blood was fed into the ether, and it wasn't successful. The magic, the damning magic of the kiss, has a variability that is untrackable, untraceable.
She can't not try, because she realized she just fucked up, so she can't not try. She's going to try to give him back some of the blood she took.
The only question, mechanically, taking a small step away from this moment with her holding him in her arms, with the shrieks of Vitae beginning to pool in the corners of her eyes, with the panic setting in, causing her own heart to beat with his stolen warmth. Mechanically, are you going to simply donate the Rouse worth of blood, or are you going to take your chance and roll a Rouse, which will be the only real determining factor?
She's just gonna give the Rouse worth of blood.
Welcome to the world of the damned, Hestia. Welcome to causing a soul to not slip into heaven's gate. Increase your hunger from 0 to 1. The beast, mousing and grousing in your head, suddenly there as Sebastian's eyes flutter. They don't snap open like blinds drawn too tightly. They flutter with the effort of dragging his soul out of heaven and damning it to this not quite adult, not quite child's body, taking the grace of forever in paradise from him and damning him to this suffering of a life unending save by violence.
So it worked, but it didn't.
Oh.
He is kindred and set up a human.
Yes, 100% one of the damned. 100% a freshly turned corpse. Now the question is, knowing what happens next, does Hestia do anything? He is effectively at hunger 5, stolen from grace, filled with the cooling remembrances of the pleasure at her touch. Is there anything Hestia would do? before he leaps into the world like a freshly born demon child that he is.
She's having a Sophia moment. She doesn't want him to not be there anymore, but she can't let him become the monster that they are. Smiling at him as he's kind of becoming aware. She very gently wraps her hands around his neck and severs his spine. By squeezing. Keeping eyes on that the whole time because she needs to remember what she did.
He is 100% at her mercy, as he has always been, so there's no role needed. She takes this moment as he's coming into his life as a kindred and ending him. Just want to make sure that that's where she is. That's what she's doing.
Yep. Because she can't. She had hoped to save him and keep him human, but because she couldn't, she knows that this would be a major fuck up on all levels. You can't create a childer and come back to the Chantry and the Camarilla, which they just got invited back to. Plus the fact that she doesn't want that mess up, like walking around and reminding her constantly that she did that. So it's better off if he was dead. And she created this mess, so she's gonna clean it up.
It's funny how tables turn so quickly, how fate and time, that these of always work against one's own better demons and worst angels. There is a small portion of the lizard brain at the back of Hestia's head that is applauding her pragmatism. Very small portion. And not because she would be saving him from a life of being damned. The small lizard portion of the back of her brain is applauding and commending her because she reduced her potential rivals. There's more blood left for her, but there being one less kindred in the world. Good job. Now, with time ahead, we'll say that you've had the opportunity to dispose of Sebastian's body. You've managed to do so without drawing too much attention to yourself or to the fact that you moved through the shelter, not the open customer client facing portion of the shelter, but the haven with his corpse. Luckily, most of the other members of the coterie were elsewhere over the last few days. Of course, you know, Lolly, having paid careful attention to the coterie, having made frequent visits back and forth, didn't really give you much time, didn't give you much respite from the fear at the back of your head that someone would know what you've done, that someone would learn just how far from grace you, the former church girl, has fallen. But you managed to get it done. The furnace, the crematorium, the oven in the sub-basement of the shelter once more fires up. Once more erases.
I don't know. I don't know if she would treat him that way.
Oh, so she'd risk it. She'd risk it for a biscuit. She'd keep the corpse around.
No, she wants him to be found. Not close, but she wants him to be found so that his parents will get closure. Having snapped his neck, she figures it'll be like either some sort of mugging or something. She does make sure to take most of his wallet and his money and stuff like that to make it look like a mugging, but she wants him found.
That changes things considerably. Would you be so kind as to roll your stamina plus stealth -1? And while that roll is happening, Miriam, that scar sitting in the preparation of the art to go atop it takes up a good portion of your time. It takes a good portion of your evening. But the other shoe needs tending. Bound though you are to the shelter for your continued existence to and do the reason for your efforts to reconnect with the Bahama of Chicago anyway, do you make your way there to inform and get the rest of the coterie involved because of the other aspect of your plan?
Probably not the first night. She's probably just so engrossed that she's like, oh, sun is coming soon, and her haven isn't too terribly far away from the shop. So she would probably stay there the first night and then go to the shelter the next night. Or next day. Night.
No, understandable. So as you all, I just want to make sure who's actually making their way toward the shelter. Remember, from Tuesday to Friday, it's already happened. We're living in a dual time of the past and the present all in one go. So all of these events having already transpired and taking place over the few nights, it's that night of everyone returning to or making their way back. Just want to make sure who is doing what. So, information in hand. Is there any member of the coterie that she's actively looking for to, or is she just trying to catch up with anyone? Will anyone do?
Well, with the bulk of the plan having been carved out with Hestia, she would go to visit Hestia first.
Excellent. Just going to check one little note here. How well do you believe Miriam made herself at home? Knowing her dragon lineage, knowing her attention to detail, knowing the handsomeness and beauty of many of the residents of the shelter. Do you think she's paid attention? Do you think that she invested herself in getting to know the idea of people? Or do you believe?
I think she would have taken the time to get to know some people, considering her ambition.
So yes. Noticing an absence is relatively easy. Knowing what that absence is, surprisingly easy for her. Because the little Twitter-pated desk host, the kid that was always there, nervously answering questions, always making herself available, running towards the danger instead of away from it, and it's gone. There's another older lady there. She's in her mid to late 40s. And she's officious and dutiful, a little nosy, constantly questioning, constantly answering her own questions and over-explaining. It's hard to not see what she does with the residents as infantilizing them, as if they are children that need her to look after them. There's some semblance of some part of you that believes that she means well. She doesn't have something. She doesn't have that connection to the clients, to the patients, to the people, to the community that the kid had. Did he go to college? Did he, like most kids, prove to be flakier than he seemed? Not sure. Needless to say, Selma is there, and she's a non-smoker. She is spot on. She greets everyone with a firm, forceful greeting. Hello. Good evening. Good morning. And so you go to meet Hestia, having met standards with Selma, having been all but approved because others are chiming in as you walk in. Oh, hey, that's Miri. Yeah. And she kind of greets you. Good evening. Doesn't bother to really
Good evening.
question you too much, but you can tell that she looks you up and down and gives you the once over. And clearly you meet standard as someone who needs the services of the shelter, probably based on the tattoos along your arm.
Never mind the well-dressed.
No, there's definitely some semblance.
I don't believe we've had the pleasure.
No, I usually don't meet the residents until their second or third night, but I'm Selma. I started 2 days ago. And you are?
I'm Miriam.
Oh, isn't that so
Miss
cute?
Green.
I'm sorry?
I work with Miss Green.
You work with Miss Green. You don't look like any of the counselors, but I suppose it takes all types. We're glad to have you. And she hand writes out a visitor's badge and hands it to you. I take it that being as you work with Miss Green, as you do know the way, it's right down the hall, and if you make the left at the end there, you'll be near the office. Don't keep going, otherwise you'll go into the commissary. And the cook there has...
Valia.
Yes, the cook will most assuredly have a plate or something for you. She is clearly just burning through Miss Green's money in regards to just feeding everyone all the time. But we're working on those things to make you have more of a scheduled meal plan and get things moving along. But right down that hall and to the left, if you will.
Erin will take the name tag and look at it. It's just... Is it like one of the sticker ones?
Yep.
Alright, she'll slap it on. Because why not? What, oh, go ahead.
No, after you.
She will... So the young gentleman that's here, usually, is he on vacation? He's never taken a vacation in the time that I've known him.
Well, with the way that he's left things, one could not tell. I believe that he maybe went back to college, or you know how kids are these days.
She will quirk an eyebrow. not intent on starting a fight, but she's clearly intrigued by the statement.
There's some dismissiveness there. It is clear that in her tone and demeanor, she has the affectation of a mother who's disappointed in a child that she's never met. It's that you know how kids are. It is that dismissiveness that itches the back of Miriam's throat and spurs a manifesto of words, because Miriam has been there and seen Sebastian run towards fire, run towards interdicting the police, run towards throwing himself in the way of oncoming violence in the name of protecting the other older adults around him. So that statement, that feeling and sense of things about someone that she clearly has never met is a bit triggering. Miriam, as per her credit, manages to not act on that trigger, but just barely so. She's seen the boy, that's what he was. At 20 years old, he's not even set mentally as to who he is, but he's willing to give his all for this place. There's no way that he would just flake out, at least not in her understanding. She could be wrong. People have fooled her before, but just from dint of knowing him these last few months, there's not any chance that he would be that sort. And to hear someone assume as such is a little triggering.
Okay. So, Miriam may be feeling a little, let's say, petty tonight, and she will look the young lady in her eyes and use cloud memory, forget, and just walk on her way.
Unprepared and unexperienced as she is with the realities of what her new employment, it is, as they say, super effective. She's staring off absentmindedly, even by the time Mary reaches the edge of the hall. The entrance open atrium. She is still staring. She's still mentally gone. It's been a rough few days. The meeting with the other dealers is later tonight. I mean, there will be another night where you'll be out of commission, Lucio, at least out of contact, if you are to adhere to your normal MO when dealing with that portion of your life. Of course, there's always strength in numbers, but if he sticks to his standard MO, he will be another night out of contact. And with everything still in the air, the other shoe as to how the coterie will be fully accepted back into the tower, up in the air, touching base is fairly important, at least to share or parse information what others have. Does he take the early portion of the evening to himself, or does he try to make his way to the shelter?
I think at the moment he would be pursuing his own agendas until that Friday.
That's today.
Oh, that is okay. Never mind. In that case, he will be rejoining the coterie at the shelter.
Okay. So as fate would have it, as time would have it, he's arriving shortly thereafter, hard on the heels of Mary. And there's a older woman. sitting at the desk, staring absent-mindedly towards the front door, her jaw a little slack. She's not drooling, though her lips are a little moister than they should be.
My audio might have cut out a little bit at the end there. Can you repeat the last part?
While she's not drooling on herself, her lips are a little moister than they should be. She's just empty-mindedly staring at the door. Not the usual greeting that Lucio receives. Sebastian normally waves everyone in and smiles and lets everyone know where they're going. But instead, the older woman sitting there, her hair clearly dyed, because there's a way that dye looks in salt and pepper hair that it doesn't look in non-salt and pepper hair. There's a bit of a sparkle and a sheen to it. And while her hair is auburn and she's clearly late 50s, early 60s, it is clear that it's a dye over a salt and pepper head of hair. Otherwise, it'd be hard to discern her actual age.
Are you okay?
Maybe I need to see the cook about getting a cup of coffee up here. Or maybe I should bring my cure from home. You know, we don't, I'm sorry. Welcome to the Harazvaro shelter. You are?
Lucio?
Okay, Mr. Lucio. And how long have you been homeless?
I've been helping Hestia. Do you not know who I am?
I'm sorry. I don't know many of the daytime staff. I'm sorry. But it's good to see more help. Are you pulling extra hours? We could always use the manpower, since the former assistant manager, which is what they call the receptionist, I'm sure you guys do the same during the day shift, just flaked off and left. So the cook is always complaining about people helping her pass out the plates, because she's always feeding people, just burning through Miss Green's money. So I think that may be where you probably want to be, unless of course you want to help Javier, the new grounds guy, the carpenter that Miss Green hired. I'm really not too sure about him. I think he may be Salvadoran or something.
I was actually trying to see if I could meet with Hestia directly today.
Well, if you work here, you know, are you a freelancer? And she starts writing out a visitor's pass for you.
You know what? Sure. Yeah. Let's call it that.
Well, I can't exactly tell you where you should work, though the cook is clearly overworked and maybe a little overpaid in my opinion. But head on back. I'm sure you know where the office is. Did they give you an orientation?
Yes, I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay, well that's nice to hear. Right back through the hall and to the left before you get to the kitchen. Otherwise, the cook will definitely put you to work. Every time I go near the place, she's asking me to pass out plates. So go right to Miss Green. Donnell, the real manager, he stepped out about 20 minutes ago. He should be back shortly.
Thank you very much. I suppose I'll see you around. Oh, I didn't quite catch your name.
Oh, Mr. Lucio, I'm Selma. What's your first name?
Lucio.
Oh. Your last name too long to people butcher it. They used to do
Last name Darcy.
Oh. An English last name. That's nice.
Italian, but sure.
Okay. I've never heard of an Italian named Darcy, but I'm sure you know better than I do. Everybody has so many weird names these days, you kids. Anyway, right down the hall to the left, right before you get to the kitchen, I believe Miss Green is actually still back there, though she comes and goes as she pleases. I don't know why people have such poor work ethic these days.
Kids these days, am I right? Well, catch you around. And he will remove himself from this conversation post-haste.
Hard on the heels of Miri, you can all but see her ahead of you as she's greeting a few people on the way by, checking in with a couple of others. Those that you know frequent the triage area, the little hospital inside the shelter. As she's making her way on, she stops and takes a look at some of the artwork that somebody sketched on the inside of a cigarette carton. And while you're making your way towards the office behind Miriam, timing is timing is timing. Walking into the shelter, needing to touch base and see how much of the apocalypse they brought onto themselves this particular evening. Lolly, the old biddy, is at the desk. You met her Wednesday night. You didn't bother to correct her at the time because you really didn't pay that much attention to her. You still have the visitor's name tag stuck to the inside of your hoodie. But as you come into the door, she's speaking at someone's back and directing them from a distance. It's clear that her voice doesn't carry far enough for them to hear or respond, but she's doing so all the same nonetheless.
Lolly will just bounce on by. No reason to interact with the help.
You can feel her waving at you. Laura, I know you're not a permanent resident, but we need to update your visitor's pass every day that you decide to stay with us.
Okay, you do that. Bye-bye.
Laura, I'm gonna have to tell Mr. Darnell.
Okay, you do that. Bye-bye.
As you all make your way through the shelter. For Lucio, this is second. He knows all the nooks and crannies and knows where to go. Same for Miri, but with an air of newness to her. It is still her domain, but there's still nooks and crannies that she may not exactly know off the back of her hand. And for Lolly, just getting from point A to point B is pretty much all that there is. The shelter itself is built in such a way as to be at base a maze. There aren't any dead ends per se, but there are less visible paths through to avoid certain scrutiny. And this is just in the shelter, not in the actual haven where you all are heading toward the office to see Miss Green. It's been a rough few days. There's been a lot that's been accomplished and a lot that needs to be discussed. So as you all get to the office, Heshy, would you be so kind as to, if you are seeking to hide the demons that are preying on your mind? Because unfortunately, with a mind built to solve puzzles, a mind built to find the true answer to riddles, what took place Tuesday hasn't left you. What?
So this role is to hide it at all, or to convincingly hide it?
To convincingly hide it. charisma and performance if you're going to be honest with that there's something wrong, but try to hide what it is. Manipulation and performance to hide the entirety of it behind the facade of officiousness, which gives everyone else, whoever decides to look into it or believes they know you well enough, a target number.
Actually, I think it's the same pool either way. It's still 3.
Roll away. Let's establish that baseline to work from, and then let's see what happens. All right. So sitting in the office where it happened has become a frequent hobby of Hestia's nights. So as Miri gets to the door, as Miriam and Lucio gets to the door, is there a knock, or do they just walk in? After all, they do live here, for lack of a better word.
I will, or
Probably
Lucio
just
will
walk
knock.
in.
So Lucio reaches to knock for the door, and Miriam opens the door as Hestia sitting this side of the desk with her back towards the door, inches from where Sabatian ceased to be, not once, but twice.
They come in. She, of course, is like sitting facing away from the door, just kind of staring off into space. She's staring at a specific spot, but it's only her that would realize what that spot is that she's staring at, and she's very quiet. Normally, there's like some, even if she's upset about something or something's going on, she's usually very animated, talking with her hands, volume fluctuating. It's not that. This is very much, she seems very deep in thought, very quiet. She's got paperwork in her hand that she's looking through, but she's just kind of staring off.
Everything okay, Hess?
I'm sure you met our new employee. One of them.
Salma?
She's a peach.
Beggars can't be choosers. We needed help and I got it. I don't know whether you noticed or not, Sebastian. It's not here, and I don't quite know why not, but...
Oh, she was quite vocal about him being a flaky kid.
She doesn't know anything.
Clearly.
As they're talking, Lolly will slide by everyone. She will put her hand inside her hoodie sleeve and she will rub the area that Hestia was looking at with a bite in her lip.
Hess catches that and kind of flinches for a second, but then goes back to talking. Look, again, I know she's not the best fit, but she's what we fucking have for now. We needed help, and I was hoping to have gotten ahead with getting staff, but apparently we are not that lucky. As I was trying to say...
Well, hopefully Sebastian comes back soon.
Again, when he says that, she just kind of closes her eyes and tightens her jaw for a minute and then looks at him again. I don't know if that's going to happen. He hasn't been here for a couple days and nobody seems to know where he is.
I like her. Do you want to talk about it?
Talk about why she was hired or talk about the fact that she exists and she's getting on everybody's nerves, apparently. Amalia read me the riot act.
No, that's not what's bothering you, I don't think.
For reference, what would the role be?
The role be for which?
For a post-Hestia.
Wits plus subterfuge. The DC, if you tie, you'll just know something's off. And if you win, you will know that there's something specifically bothering her, something nettling her. Her success was 2, which means you have 3 or more. You can read the lines of code in her face. At 2 or less, you just know, she's a little tense. Intense.
So I have under insight a specialty in detect lies. Would that be a better role?
Yes.
Ta-da.
And all the secrets of the universe drop into Miriam Black.
Suddenly, she begins hearing whispers.
Right?
The corners of the room, seeing shadows out of the corners of her eyes. When she turns, they're not there.
Everyone who
Now she sees the truth of the world.
Everyone who looked on the Painted Lady, living and dead, saw a monster. And yes, she very much was. She very much was the idea of something so cold that it seemed hot. She had a understanding that this life was pain, and that was the end all be all. You chose what you were willing to hurt for. Everything is going to hurt you, so that as close to God as you can come is using your pain beneficially, hurting for things that matter to you, sacrificing portions of yourself for things that matter to you. For her, it was beauty. It's the reason why she engaged in actual scarification, why she engaged in dealing mortal wounds to herself to leave scarification across her body that worked harmoniously with the tattoos that she created. And it was only watching her grieve that reality presented itself to you. She cared about everything. She cared mostly about art, most importantly, but she was, for all intents and purposes, what many people try to use as an insult, a bleeding heart. She mourned for the loss of simple common decency. She mourned for the loss of morals societally. She mourned for all of the lives that she took. She purposefully starved herself to the point of near frenzy before every major work. Anyone wanted a sleeve, any kindred needed a full back, any kindred needed, she would make sure that she was at that perfect moment of pain so that she felt what she was dealing to her paying customers. It was how she prepared. It was how she lived. And only because of that does what's happening with Hestia leave its mark, that it reads through loud and clear. Hestia is mourning something. Hestia is in the full grip of that varying scale of emotions. And she's not being honest with herself about it.
Miriam will look down for a moment and just say, "Oh no," and just bear hug Hestia.
Normally, when Hestia gets hugged unexpectedly, she pretty much squawks and writhes and tries to get away, like a recalcitrant toddler. But this time, as Miriam hugs her, she just sits very still and waits for it to be over.
Even though she's sure in this small room, other people will hear it. She's just going to whisper what happened to him.
As Miriam hugs Hestia, and they're sharing something that roughly sounds like from where you're standing, Lucio. What fills your gaze besides Hestia's dour setting is that Dizzy has been brought back to you. The voice is different, but the hair, the small frame, the blonde hair, though it's a little darker than you remember. The hoodie with that number of bands. Is that baby fucking chorus? Dizzy is back and standing right there, acting as if no time has passed at all, diving right into the conversation. She's not chewing bubblegum for the first time in forever, but that's fucking Dizzy.
Considering Lucio's reaction to when he first lost Dizzy, he's unsure how to feel about this doppelganger in the room. For the time being, he's going to put a pin in commenting about it, as number one, he doesn't think it would be appropriate in this context, but also there's a bit of a situation that seems to be unfolding. But it is definitely something he's going to talk to the new member about when he gets a chance.
And hearing those damning words, what happened to him? As Miriam hugs her against her own self, hugs her against the coldness in her own heart, hugs her against the ghost whispering in her ear. What does Hestia and Lolly, who can easily overhear the ghosts abounding and see Hestia swirling amidst the vortex of all of those many potential futures, what is it that they do? What is it that they say as Lucio is taking in the scene, as the world continues moving towards its precipice?
Lolly will sit down cross-legged in the spot and just kind of cock her head and stare through Hestia.
Hestia, kind of barely audible, replying to Miriam. Monsters happened. I'll leave it at that. And finally, extricating herself from being held, she looks back at Lucio. So, I guess we're all here because we all have news and things that need to be taken care of as per normal. And I'm surprised we got 4 nights of she can't say peace. Things not happening to us. So it's time to get back to work.
Vacation's over, fellas.
Okay, so look it. I had a dream, all right? Well, I had a lot of dreams, but this dream was something in the south with a crown. It's very bad. Very, very bad, whatever it is. What is it?
Clients aren't supposed to be in the office, Laura. And Miss Green and I guess coworkers. The police are here and Donnell's not around, so I came to get you guys. I don't want to deal with the police. I don't like them. You know, they hate us.
For the first time since they got in here tonight, Hess goes kind of stone cold looking at their newest visitor. First and foremost, Lolly, she points to Lolly, is helping me. She is not a guest in the shelter. Stop giving her visitor tag. She can come and go as she please. The rest of the people in this office are also employees and come and go as they please. I want you to make sure that you hold on to that and get that clear in your head.
Okay, Selma, thank you.
Hearing some other things, we'll have to talk about them later. But yes, I will go talk to the police.
Oh, of course. Like, I don't mean anything by it. I'm sorry, Lolly, but who has a name like Lolly? I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. So, yeah, you want to go ahead and give me those visitor badges? I'll take care of them and find something. I'll probably go help the cook while you go talk to the police because they don't get enough of harassing us. I don't know why people have to be so fucking rude.
Are you going to recycle it?
Of course. Why do you think I keep the page so that we could just put them back on there and I could just rewrite the dates? Why do you think I could go through and bring my own whiteout? God. You kids. Anyway, the police are up there. I don't know how long the gas will keep them busy, but I really, really don't like the police. Especially... And don't take this the wrong way, but that officer smells really like curry. And I don't like curry either.
Pinching the bridge of her nose so she doesn't snatch her bald as she walks past, already tense as she is. Tess just kind of shakes her head and just heads towards the front.
Miriam's eyebrow is probably the highest you've ever seen it, as she just kept digging herself deeper and deeper and deeper in a hole. And then she will follow Hestia out.
The woman's name was Selma, right?
Yep.
Selma, you should get a coffee. You're doing a good job. Has anyone told you that today?
No, I mean, I even showed up an hour early. But anyway, I guess I'll go help the cook and I'll recycle these badges and find another way to make sure that we know who's a guest and who's some person just walking in. Not like we don't have hundreds of dollars just floating around with all the... And she walks off talking to herself. You know, equipment no one uses and just anybody can come in. Who all moves to the front door to deal with the police?
Obviously, Hess is gonna have to go.
Lucia will accompany her.
As will Miriam.
Lolly will bring up the rear, but she will not be seen.
So a united front is always a good showing when dealing with anyone who has any officious nature. Lucio's face drops a little bit. not because he's despondent, but it's hard to really come to grips with how much his heart swells seeing Elijah in uniform with sergeant's bars on his sleeve. Everyone else, you see a tall Indian male, seems like he's in his mid to late 30s, but he's probably a little bit younger once you get close enough. There's not enough wrinkles or enough gray hair, but just based on living such a nocturnal life, there's a wear and tear that can't be replaced with any number of hours of sleep. Living by night, being a living thing, takes its toll, and it's apparent all over him. And while it's clear that he's muscled enough to do the job, it is clear that all of the fast food, all of the late hours, all of the lack of sleep is taking its toll. The fact that he's here without a partner means this isn't your usual or average raid. And as you all come down the hall towards the front desk, his gaze, his face brightens as he looks towards you all. And you never see cops express themselves as actual humans. Not in Chicago. They're living beings, but they don't act like it. You do everything they can to not act like it, to establish a wall between them and those that they serve. Because, strong, good walls make good neighbors, and it's easier to operate with a semblance of callousness if there's a distance emotionally there. But that usual wall isn't there. There isn't a swelling up or what have you. In fact, he throws his arms wide and begins closing on you.
Lucio will go to greet him and will say, "So this is what you've been up to all this time, Sergeant?"
Yeah, brother. Instead of getting lambasted for protecting you and the girls, somebody pulled some strings and that went away. And check this out. I am one of the area sergeants. Of course, I get stuck with the shit shifts, but come on, bro. Look at this. And he does a little twirl, light on the balls of his feet, dust off his shoulders.
It's about damn time they gave you the respect you deserve.
Fuck it, ain't right. I tell you, bro. Look, we're gonna have to catch up. I've been meaning to stop by, but I'm busy, man. I'm busy. I didn't know that there were so many homicides in Rogers Park. I didn't know there were so many John Does. So we got a who am I? I'm sorry. I gotta do this officially. I'm Sergeant Kamal. Who's in charge of this knucklehead and this building?
Lucio just points over to Hestia. That would be the missus here.
He looks from you to her. Stepping up in the world is good for you. So, Miss Darcy?
No, not like that. That came out wrong. That would be this young lady here. That is... Okay. Ma'am, are you the manager, are you the owner? It doesn't really matter what your title is, but can I have your name? I'm Sergeant Kamal.
Has a moment of what the fuck because of that whole flip that just happened. She's looking at Lucio and then looks back at the cop. Hestia Green. And I am, yes, the owner and proprietor
And he looks at Miriam, and you are?
I'm Miriam. She will hand him a business card because that's what she does.
No. Oh, okay. All right, Miss Ashton, Miss Green. Do you mind if we find a quiet place to talk? There's some detectives on their way over here, but and he looks toward Lucio. I kind of want to take responsibility for my entire zone. And this building falls in my zone, so I want to prep you guys so you make a good showing with the detectives, and I don't have to deal with them targeting the building here and the neighborhood any more than they have in the past. There was a John Doe found. Real bad shape. And they're trying to identify him, and it's clear that there was foul play. So to mitigate how bad we tend to respond when the detectives show up, almost everybody from the neighborhood dislikes police except for, and he looks at Lucio, this guy and his family.
I believe the infirmary is closer than the office. I don't believe there's anyone occupying it at the moment.
Okay, lead the way.
And Miriam will usher them all to the infirmary.
So Miriam takes the lead. Kamal falls back so that he's shoulder to shoulder with Lucio. And, hey, bro, you didn't tell me you were working for the shelter. I thought you were still with the old man.
I do a bit of both, juggle both.
Yeah, it seems like all the hard work in your family landed on you. You know, your sister and Faye haven't physically been in class, even though they keep logging onto their classes. I talked to the professors earlier in the week.
Yeah, I'm aware. They are dealing with some things, some family issues. Last I checked in with them, they were out in Thornton Township.
It's no Chicago, but it has a pretty big area to look in. But if you know that they're okay, I'll leave it alone. And as you all step into the infirmary, it seems like yesterday you all were here dealing with the arrival of Force Appealers. It seems like yesterday you all were here were dealing with the fire. It seems like yesterday, when all of the previous many issues that took place here. But in the last 4 days, technically the last 3 days, it has been brightened. It has been reorganized. Everything's labeled. Every drawer is labeled. All of the sheets, blankets, and bandages put away, stacked neatly, folded, and labeled. It's still clearly your triage center, your little hospital for the shelter, but the sheer level of organization applied to the space makes it feel like a completely different area to begin with. There's a level of OCD that has hit this place like a tsunami, washing away everything and drowning it in an ordered, neat, spit spot and put away seeming.
Miriam will frown a bit. This is more organized than the ER. Whatever. Have a seat.
Yeah, sure. I won't be long. Who's cooking, if I can ask?
Well, that'd be Amalia.
That actually smells good. You know, you don't really expect shelter food to smell like real food, to smell good. But that really kicks ass.
I'm sure she would spare a plate if you asked.
Yeah, no, I don't want to take away from the people that need it. So there was a John Doe found, and I can't share too much. It's not my investigation, but the detectives feel that the best way is to reach out to several of the shelters that are in our precinct, in our district, and in my zone to see if they can find a way to ID the person. So I wanted to prepare you guys for that, and ask: has any of your patients, any of your clients, any of your residents, have they gone missing lately? Is there anyone that stands out that is normally here that isn't?
We do have a staff member that's missing.
Ms. Green, is that true? Is you're missing a staff member?
The whole walk to this spot, Hess was getting herself together. So she kind of, not quite looking him in the eye, looking him in the chin. Because, of course, both height and not wanting to look him in the eye. Tuesday night, I was working with one of my staff members to create some flyers, and I sent him to go get them made, and I haven't seen him since. He's usually here every day, but he's college age, so I figured maybe he got a wild hair or something, maybe. Because now that you're mentioning you found somebody, I'm worried.
Well, with any luck, this is not your guy. This is I don't want. Again, I can't share too much, but the body was worked over and no ID, no information, and perfectly honest, look malnourished. So it's more than likely one of your residents on the very thin side. But yeah, the detectives will answer most of your questions. I just want to make sure that you guys are prepped, you're prepared. This is not a targeted attack by the police. We really are here to help. Look, you can talk to this guy. He'll tell you, I'm a straight shooter. I will make sure I can do everything I can as long as you don't let me get stuck out there flat-footed. So if there's anything else besides what your missing staff member, do you have any pictures of your missing staff member? Any description of your missing staff member? Any numbers we can call? We can help you find him. If he's just, getting his rocks off, we can smack him on the wrist and send him back here to do his job.
At that assessment, especially the whole insinuation that sex had something to do with it, there was a shudder on her part. Yeah, we can get you a picture. Hold on. And she'll look around the infirmary, because normally they keep pictures of the staff on the walls and stuff, and patients and smiling activities, so she finds one with him in it and points to him.
It's funny the way these things work out. The picture that immediately she puts her finger on, the picture that she uses to show Sebastian, is in fact a picture of him smiling, but it's Sebastian, Faye, and Stella helping do the remodeling, the repairing of the triage hospital wing of the shelter following Forcipulus's initial attack. Amalia and Donnell were sorely beaten, mortally wounded, and weren't available, but those three kept it going. Amalia, of course, returned the day after that picture was taken, and even though broken limbs and all, she put in 110% to help repair the triage center. But that picture is from those three, the three college kids, the three musketeers of the shelter, repairing damage done by the supernatural. And as that picture sits there, Elijah taking notes of it, pulling out his phone and taking a picture of it. It's impossible for Lucio to not read the wealth of information that flits behind his glasses across his face. Lucio knows, looking at Elijah, that the body that the detectives will be showing up to talk about is, in fact, Sabatian. And unfortunately, Lucio also knows that means he needs to reach out to Julius Fairmont, their former Coda member who is considered the sheriff of the Tremere, their enforcer. Lucio knows he needs to reach out to Sebastian's father, Julius, because if Elijah, and you know that he probably will make the connection between Fairmont and Fairmont, pays a visit to the Tremere Chantry looking for Julius, you are sure that there will be a loss. And he's already suffered enough. He's already lost enough people. Lolly is able to feel the emotional weight sitting in the room. It's like walking into a storm cloud of flies buzzing all around, some landing and regurgitating their stomachs all over your skin. Others just buzzing in your ear and trying to talk your head off. But either way, it is a creepy, crawly, disgusting feeling, being awash in all the feelings that have nothing to do with you, but are bombarding the very edges of your senses, making it difficult to not ask questions, to solve problems, to help. Because if you can help, if this is that butterfly, you can avert the storm of hell, the apocalypse that threatens, that looms. And for Miriam, the picture is bright and happy and filled with positive emotions, but it is impossible for her artist's eye to not catch that there are several other similar pictures, all from different times, based on the clothing of the people involved. There's Donnell and Amalia. There's some tall, clearly African male. There's Hestia and that same African male. There's a person, an older version of Sabatian, wider of chest, squarer of jaw. There's just picture upon pictures of clearly staff members or associate members who put in work to rebuild, to build, to repair this place several score of times, over and over and over again. And like a soldier with a soldier's heart, she relives the moment of watching as the room she was in changed several times over around her back throughout the years until she was sitting across the desk from that guy offering that deal, which set all of these things in motion. She knows that it was a precursor to the haunting she's experienced, except for it wasn't a haunting, it was a temporary possession by this very building, by this very space, showing all the many faces it's had over the years, all of the heartbreak, rebuilding, repairs that it's had. It refuses to stay down. It refuses to remain beaten. But it has been broken several, exponentially several times over again and again and again. Saying goodbye is never an easy thing. It is always a bad end, no matter how well it's carried out. That's the reason why it ends. That's the reason why what has happened before does not continue. But with time, that bad end doesn't seem so bad. The shelter as a building has persisted due to its supernatural value. The shelter as a coterie has persisted due to its inherent value to the city and to the denizens of the shelter. But eventually, every clock stops. Eventually, everything comes to an end. And with so many opportunities for ending sat in their immediate view, it is a wonder that the weight of knowing that doesn't crush them all. And as we cycle through another stage of grief, another stage of loss and mourning, I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night all.